Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Boyos Discuss, the podcast where we pick a topic and then shoot the shit about it for a while. This week we're talking about episode 10 of Shenmue the Animation, which is titled Comeback. I'm Matthew, and I'm joined by my co-host Ben. How's it going?
How's it going?
So we do have a bit of Shenmue news this week, courtesy of an article by Thomas Bowen from GameRant, and I'll link the article in the description below, that way you can sort of check it out if you want additional details, but the basic gist of it is that a publisher called 110 Industries has been teasing that they might be involved with Shenmue 4, possibly. So they actually had like a presentation last year at the Tokyo Game Show, and they actually had Yu Suzuki at the beginning of it, and he sort of just was like more there as like a history thing, like, yeah, like here's an important historical figure in like Japanese game development. But somebody actually on basically 110 Industries, they had made some Instagram posts, and a fan of Shenmue sort of commented on it and was like, hey, you know, it'd be cool if y'all would publish Shenmue 4. And they literally responded to the comment with, guess why Yu Suzuki was at our Tokyo Game Show stream. And so
all their heads exploded.
And so since then, you know, a lot of fans of Shenmue have been sort of tweeting at 110 Industries, and they've sort of had some cheeky little responses that they've had since then. So it's really pointing towards there being something going on with Shenmue 4. We're sort of at the point, though, where only time will tell.
I've never even heard of these people. What's 110? Have they made anything noteworthy?
So they're a smaller publisher for sure. Like, they're not the size of, like, an Activision or something like that. They're sort of, like, I'd say, like, up and coming in a certain way. Like, they recently got a lot of funding. Like, they raised capital, I guess, if you sort of go into like the, I guess, deep end of researching them. They've raised like $20 million from like one investor alone or something like that.
Damn.
So they're making moves, and whether or not that actually means anything, or if they're just sort of like trying to get clout, you know, sort of.
Was there a company with Shenmue 3, or was it all just kind of Kickstarter?
So that was part of it, but then also Deep Silver, who is another sort of, I'd say, like mid-tier publisher, they backed them, and then Epic Games also threw some money to have it be Epic Game Store exclusive on PC for a while anyways. Eventually they did put it on Steam, but they did throw some money at it.
But like Deep Silver worked on it?
So they're like, it's more like, you know, like a producer for a movie. They're in charge of like the money aspect of it. It's sort of like that with publishers, where it's like they handle the financing and they're like, okay, here's, you know, we'll raise the capital for you to make the game.
And that's what 110 is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a similar sort of thing to that. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out. And another sort of interesting tidbit on this is that EaseNet, who's the studio that Yu Suzuki runs, they recently have moved into, a lot of people are saying, like a bigger office than they previously had. So that sort of points to them maybe, you know, getting more staff members on for a big project. It really just is going to come down to how things sort of shake out with that.
How old is Yu Suzuki?
Oh, he's got to be getting up there. I want to Google that now.
Well, he's like, I don't know. I want him to see the end of his...
63.
63. I want him to be able to see the end of his legacy.
Yeah.
But it's like, hurry up.
It's like...
You gotta put him out faster than you've been.
It's like George R. R. Martin.
Right.
It's like,
bro,
you're getting...
Come on.
It's like, I know you want to do Elden Ring, but...
Yeah, somebody else is going to pick this shit up if you don't. Come on.
Yeah. But sort of jumping off on that, we do have some good news about Shenmue the Animation. We have some sort of ratings, basically, you know, like the viewership for the show on Toonami. There's a website called Toonami Faithful that actually tracks like the weekly ratings for like the entire block. And Shenmue has actually been at the top or towards the top pretty much every week since it premiered. I think the only week where it was like pretty much like it wasn't really a contest was when Dragon Ball Super was still on and it had like 100,000 more viewers. But it's actually been having more viewers than Attack on Titan, which is like
nuts.
It's absolutely insane.
That's ridiculous.
And it's like exciting because, as fans, our hope is that means, that'll translate into like the streaming as well. So obviously we don't really have numbers for Crunchyroll yet, but, sort of once the season's wrapped up, maybe they'll sort of reveal how well the show did on that platform.
I'd say that's a good sign for another season.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that makes me really happy because, like, in the event that we are just doing, like, basically Shenmue 3 for Season 2, I'm really excited to see what they can sort of flesh out, because the game is sort of light on the story. It's a lot of, like, sort of fetch quest type stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it would be cool to see maybe if they had, like, a bigger vision for what that story could have been. Or maybe even a more focused story, because there's a lot of, like, sort of grinding and stuff for money. So it's like if we could sort of skip over that, maybe just focus on like the the important stuff.
I want every second of the grind animated. I want to see Ryo chase every chicken every day.
Yeah, he's got to chase those chickens. He's got to
pick the plants,
chop the wood, so he can afford.
That's what we want to see. That's what we as the fans demand.
You're not wrong. But so with that out of the way, we're going to get right into the synopsis here. There are going to be spoilers for both the games and this episode of the anime. So we do recommend watching this week's episode on Toonami or Crunchyroll beforehand. So we open up this episode with, we're back in Guilin in sort of rural China. And Shenhua's father is getting ready to go to the stone quarry. That was the cave that we saw at the beginning of the series. And, he's like, I'm going to finish working on this important project or whatever. And, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to be back for a while. And she's like, oh, I'll bring you lunch or whatever. So go now.
Bitch, I want to be left alone.
And so he heads off and, it's sort of like early in the morning, like the sun is rising. And she looks at the Shenmue tree and some of the flowers are starting to bloom on it. And it's like, ooh, symbolism.
Wow. It's so deep.
So after that, we get the intro song, slaps as usual. We'll just go past that now. So we immediately go from there to Hong Kong, and Ryo, he's getting ready to leave the city. So sort of at the end of the last episode, he's like, I'm a head out. Peace. Yeah. So he is at Manmo Temple, and it's sort of like a somber way that they open his portion of this episode. Like he bows to the temple, and then he's walking through the streets of the city, and it's early enough in the morning that it's like empty. Mm-hmm. Like empty, because usually they at least have one of those weirdly animated people sort of walking around, but this time it's just him, and he goes to, I guess, the entrance of Ren's hideout, and Wong is sort of chilling there, and he's like, hey, come on, man, like, we gotta go now. And from there, they go inside the hideouts, and Ren is like, yeah, I got this contact named Yang in Kowloon, and he is going to help us find where Yandazu is. And so they immediately head there.
Yeah, just like boom.
Yeah, it's like really abrupt, and like I sort of understand why. Like there's a lot more we have to do in Kowloon, and we do a lot in this episode. Like they sort of power through like a lot of what happens in Kowloon. But
it's just kind of funny that we've spent so much time with every single, like an entire episode with every
of the voodoo. Yeah.
And then it's like, yeah, the barber guy, give him ample screen time. But going on to the next like portion of the game, like if they didn't even, all they did really was to put a black screen up that says Kowloon.
Yeah.
If that wasn't there, I would have been like, oh, where in Hong Kong are they? Like it just doesn't really.
Yeah, they sort of bouncing off that, we didn't really get a good like establishing shot of Kowloon. Like they show the looking up from the city. Yeah, the plane going overhead.
Yeah, that was cool.
And yeah, that's cool, but that's like sort of all we get. Like we in the game, I showed you the cutscene before we started recording, but they have this really cool sort of like sweeping camera shot of like the skyline of it, and it like goes up the buildings and stuff. And it's like I feel like that probably would have been difficult to translate to 2D. Much time. But yeah, it's like it would have really made it feel different from Hong Kong. Whereas like right now I'm sort of like, I agree with you. We could just as easily have not said that we were in a different, basically city.
I think they should have like somehow navigating the time in the last, 4 episodes, starting with episode 7, somehow had enough time to condense one of those to where like right before the episode ends is when he bows to Manmo and he gets on the bus. He's like, I'm going to Kowloon. Yang tells them that there's a contact there. He gets on the bus, end of episode.
And
Next
then,
episode, bus is arriving, like they're in Kowloon, have that establishing thing, and then from there, do this episode.
Yeah. So from there, they sort of go to where Yang is. He has this sort of medicine herb shop type thing, and they're talking to him, and they're like, yeah, we need you to help us find Yandazu, and he's like, I can help you, and he says, all right, meet with this man who's dressed in a black suit. He'll be in this building, and you got to tell him the code phrase, dragons don't sleep.
Yeah, look for the man with the thickest stash
in all of China.
It's like a Tom Selleck cop stash.
Yeah, it's interesting. And they do a lot of stuff like that where it's like people who clearly are not Chinese or Japanese.
I was like, that's the thickest mustache I've ever seen on a Chinese man.
So they meet up with that guy, and he's like, okay, like go down to the end of this hall to the room with a dragon on the door, and that's where you got to go. And he sort of signals to this other goon in a black suit, and Ren catches wind of that. He sort of sees it in the corner of his eye, and he warns Rio. He's like, hey, something fishy's going on here. Like, we gotta stay on our toes. And they get to that door, and he's like, okay, I'll keep watch, and you go inside, Rio. And Rio's like, okay. But in the game, or maybe it's, I think it might be thinking of something later on, but there's a part where they want to go into a door later in the game, and Ren is like, okay, we'll flip a coin to decide who goes.
What?
And he has 2 coins, one with heads on both sides, one with tails on both sides.
And whatever you pick, he's like, all right, that's awesome.
And so it's one of those things where he's like, you lose, you got to do it. And Rio's like, fuck.
Damn it.
And I mean, eventually we do, like, in the game, he reveals that he had 2 coins, and he's like, you piece of shit.
That's awesome.
So Rio goes into the room, and he comes face to face with Dou Niu, who is the leader of the Yellowheads gang. And Rio, he doesn't know that at the time.
His head isn't any more yellow.
It's
I want my fucking money back.
So he's like, "Are you Yandazu?" and Dou Niu says, Yandazu ain't as handsome as me.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the same, I think they use the same line in the game. I fucking love it. He's great.
He's right. He's a looker.
Yeah. So, some Yellowheads goons show up, and, the one who's been sort of throughout the episodes, the one from the shopping mall a few episodes ago, he's like, that's that kid who keeps fucking with our business.
Face.
Yeah, he does. He recognizes him, and then Ren bursts through the door, and he takes out 2 of the goons, basically the ones that showed up, and from there, Ren and Rio try taking on Dou Niu, but he's so massive that their attacks just feel like...
Dude, they both, did their super punches into his kidneys.
Yeah, and...
I don't care how fat you are, you get punched in your kidneys. That's intimidating as fuck. If I nailed you there...
Or is it muscle?
Right?
Pure muscle.
Yeah. I mean, it's sunk in. I don't know. But he was like... Psh.
Yeah, he's like...
I donated both my kidneys, idiot.
He's like, what, did some mosquitoes bite me? And he immediately knocks them out. He has this cool sort of side punch thing that he does.
Just imagine Butterbean. And that's
I have no idea what you're talking about.
They'll know. He was a boxer. He's a big fat bald boxer.
Okay. All right. Yeah. See, I had no context.
Or King Hippo, I guess. There you go.
I don't know that either.
You don't know Punch Out?
Okay. There you go, video game stuff. He knocks them out and sort of kicks his goons. He's like, "Good up, you fucking pieces of shit. Capture them." And so they handcuff Rio and Ren together, and they lock them up in this sort of cell that they have. And so Rio sort of comes to, and Ren is already awake, and he's like, oh, here's some exposition now, because that's this part of the episode.
Yes.
And so he's sort of talking about some history about the Yellowheads that's actually new to the anime. It's exclusive sort of backstory that we haven't gotten before. And he sort of tells Rio that, they used to just be the muscle for a gang called the White Tie, who were in charge of, like, all the fancy casinos throughout China, I guess, or maybe just Hong Kong. And essentially what they did was they planted an explosive in the car of the leader of the White Tie, so that way they could take control of Hong Kong. And so it's just interesting in that the flashback that we see is the same, or at least I think what they're implying is that the little girl there is Joy. Because earlier they had that sort of brief flashback to when she was a kid looking off into the distance, and she was like, yeah, even when you're given a raw deal or something like that.
I didn't pick that up.
Yeah, and maybe it's just because I watched these like 4 times each, but it's cool that we're getting like more of her backstory.
Yeah,
because that was always something that people have like theorized and stuff. Because in the game,
she's a white tie. That's the opposite of a formal event. That would be a black tie.
Sure.
Yes.
But yeah, we get that wicked explosion, and then you have Dou Niu and Yuan sort of like chilling in the shadows, like, we did it. We killed them.
We're so evil.
Yeah. So after that exposition dump, we have Ren sort of plotting an escape. Rio's like, you got to get us out of here, man. And throughout the episode, we sort of have this sort of interesting dynamic with him and Rio, where Rio is like, we got to do this, and Ren is like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do, you piece of shit.
And good on him.
And so, Ren, he comes up with a plan to get out of there. He slams on the door, and he tells the guard, he's like, the kid's dying, you gotta help us. And the guard, who is a total buffoon, is
he said, why should I care? Because why would he?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, he didn't. He goes, oh my god, let me open the door.
One, it's like, I think the idea is that, like, they think that they have a clue about where Yandazu is, but
how many people does it take to tell a message? Huh? Did you ever see Mulan?
So he opens the door like a little doofus, and of course they punch him right in the face and knock him out, and unfortunately he does not have the key to the handcuffs that
rats.
When it was funny because when we were watching the episode, Ben sort of talked about, he was like, oh god, is this going to be like that episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars, where it's Obi-Wan and Count Dooku,
and they're like, oh, we gotta work together, and it's basically,
and that's like, the entire episode,
like the Emperor's New Groove, but every fucking show on Earth tries to pull it off and be like, oh, isn't this wacky? These people don't like each other, but they have to learn to work together. Ha ha. And I'm just like, I don't want to deal with this right now.
Well, it's like, we don't get much of it in this, and I think their dynamic throughout
I thought they were going to fucking stay handcuffed the whole episode. It'd be like, we need to have a whole montage about coordinating their movements, like Evangelion, with dance or whatever.
And you have Rio having his epiphany, where he's like, I get it now.
We are both one person, like trying to get fucking Goku and Vegeta to spirit dance or whatever, fuse. I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, so thankfully we don't do that. We basically have them making a run for it through the Yellowheads' hideouts, and after they fight a couple of goons, they end up taking a little breather on one of the building's rooftops. And it's just one of those interesting things where, like, if you sort of know about, like, how the layout of Kowloon is, like, there's a lot of weird, like, different heights of buildings, and, like, some would lead to, like, like, exits and stuff like that, and other times there's just a random rooftop, and it's like, okay, like, we'll just chill here, like, it'll take them time to find us. So, while they're chilling up there, Ren talks with Rio, and he's like, hey, like, who was it that killed your father? Like, why are you so intent on figuring this out? And Rio's like, oh yeah, like, it was Lan Di. And Ren actually recognizes that name, and he's like, Lan Di of the fucking Chiyu men? He's like,
are you insane?
He's like, they're the fucking one of the biggest cartels in China. Why would you, like, fuck with them?
And Rio goes, so what? Are you fucking serious? Well, it's on par for his character, but it's just like, dude.
Yeah, one, it's like, I'm not sure if it's this scene or later on where, I think it actually might be later, where he's like, I'll go to the ends of the earth to fucking find my father's killer. And it's like, Wow, okay.
You can go anywhere you want. You're taking on a fucking cartel, my man.
Yeah. So from there, as they're sort of talking about Lon D, they actually cut over to him sort of looking through one of the skyscraper's windows across either Hong Kong or Kowloon. And we have Dou Niu and Yuan sort of talking with Lon D. They're like bowing at his feet. And they're talking about their search for Yondazu. And essentially the Yellowheads have made a deal with the Chiyu men. And in exchange for Yondazu, the Chiyu men will give the Yellowheads total control over Hong Kong. And it's like one of those things where it's like, well, they'd probably just double cross them in the end. Because it's like, I don't think an organization like the Chiyu men would freely just be
Also,
like...
weren't the Yellowheads known for being backup gangs, and then they murder the head of the gang they were being the backup for to take control? I mean, if you have that kind of fucking... what's the word? I don't know. If that's what people know about you... I can't think of the word right now. It's going to hit me. But yeah, I feel like I wouldn't want to work with you.
Yeah.
As another powerful gang leader.
So yeah, they're sort of talking about that, and Londi's like, okay, like I'll agree to giving y'all control over Hong Kong. And Yuan is sort of like, oh yeah, we captured these two other people who are also looking for Yondazu. And they mentioned that one of them was a Japanese kid, and that's sort of like Londi's like a Japanese kid. Interesting. Like he's sort of it takes his attention, I guess. And after that, one of the Yellowhead goons, the one from the previous episodes with the scrunched up face, he shows up and informs them that Ren and Rio have escaped. And from there, we go back to Ren and Rio continuing their escape through the Yellowhead building, and they go to this elevator, and they're frantically sort of pressing the button to get it to come up. And who is it that comes out of the elevator door but Yuan?
Oh, Yuan.
And so he comes out of there, and he's like, oh, like y'all are here. And he fucking
I haven't learned my lesson.
Basically. He attacks them with a knife, and they sort of block it with the handcuffs and knock him down. And in the next elevator over, Yuan is sort of like,
why the fuck didn't they take the same elevator?
Dou Niu's a thick boy.
That's true. He took up all the space.
Yeah, so...
he's like water. He fills any container he's in.
Yeah, so in the next elevator over, like we were saying, Dou Niu comes out, and he sees Yuan on the ground, and he's like, my cute little Yuan! And he gets like super fucking mad, and he chases Rio and Ren through the building. I love how Dou Niu like runs. He like sort of
shakes
lumbers
the camera every time it steps. The camera like
you hear a thud.
Yeah. He's like the boulder from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They're like trying to run down hallways. He's just gonna start fucking rolling at them.
So they're able to narrowly escape him. They jump through like they see this sort of like basically like fire escape thing. They open the door, and it opens on like this sort of like you have like basically a ledge.
Yeah,
between
they were like,
you
oh,
and
there'll be a staircase, and it was just gone.
Yeah,
they're like, fuck.
Yeah, so Rio's like, we gotta jump. We gotta fucking jump for it. That's the only way we're gonna get out of this. They do
a Sundance, the Sundance Kid move. It's like, we gotta jump, huh? You don't know Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? I do
not, no.
Oh my god.
I'm uncultured, apparently. But yeah, they jump out of there, and they do this roll, and Ben was saying like...
Yeah, dude, they're still handcuffed.
Yeah,
so they jump, they run back, they run forward to take this jump, and they have to roll on impact to keep from like shattering their knees. And they'd have to like perfectly in sync roll for their arms not to be twisted right off their fucking body, like broken in 5 places. I was like, their arms would be shattered. That would not work. But anyway.
Oh, and there's one thing I did want to mention earlier. When they're handcuffed together, and this is a missed opportunity, given some of the humor we had in the Yokosuka part of the story, Ren has to take a piss at one point while they're handcuffed together.
In the game?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's like, I gotta pee, man. And Rio's like,
unzip my pants, bro.
He's like, come on, dude. Like, we can't just, like, wait. And so...
That's funny.
Yeah, they don't do that in this, which was weird since there was so much potty humor.
Right? Oh my god, you're right.
It's like, yeah.
Maybe they heard our podcast. They were like, oh, we're giving away... They're giving away our piss fetish. We can't show it off anymore.
So from there, once they escape, they go back to Ren's hideout, and well, actually, no, maybe it's not Ren's hideout. I think it actually might be Wong's like home where he lives at, because like I think it might be that actually. But they meet up with Wong, and he uses his lock-picking skills to get the handcuffs off of them, and Joy's there too. And she sort of makes a jab at them. She's like, oh yeah, y'all are getting along like brothers, you know, like, because they keep sort of like butting heads where Ren's...
I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Me.
And so Ren is like, no, we're not like brothers at all. He fucking got me involved with the other big gang in Hong Kong. And Joy is like, really? Y'all are getting involved with the Yellowheads? Like,
oh, you.
Probably don't want to be doing that.
Bunch of knuckleheads.
So after that, Ryo and Ren, they go back to Yang's medicine shop, and they do sort of a good cop, bad cop type deal where Ren is like beating the shit out of him. He's like, you fucking set us up, you bastard. Why'd you do that? And Ryo's like, stop. Let me deal with this. And he's like, where's Yondazu? And then Yang looks up, and he sees
the eyes of determination.
Yeah, he sees that, and he's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Well, if I'm just saying, you know, I've seen enough. This is all from TV, so what do I know? But I've seen enough fucking gang things to be like, oh, you double-crossed me for another gang. You're now an example, and I need to send a message to everybody to know not to fucking do that. So that guy's dead.
Yeah.
Ren killed that guy. Like, they got the information they needed, and they probably slit his throat in a pork store and let him bleed out with all the carcasses. So anyway, yeah, he's dead. So
but he's like, okay, I don't know where Yondazu is, but Huang the wiretapper might know. And Ryo's like, who's that? And Ren's like, oh, I know where this guy is. Like, follow me. Well,
let me just deal with something here real fast, and I'll meet you outside.
We're gonna take this guy to the pork store. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Yep. So yeah, they head over to Huang the wiretapper's like hideout, house, apartment, whatever you want to call it. And he's not there, but you know, they're sort of like, well, he's got to be keeping his little recordings of the calls that he's been tapping somewhere. And in the game, this is one of the like investigation things where you can look through the room, like all the different shelves and stuff like that, all the cupboards.
You can look at the intricate finger movements.
Yes, like, and you're like, wow, you can pick up an apple and move it in your hand. Yeah.
This is why I play Shenmue.
Exactly. But in this, they find the cassette tapes inside the garbage can. Sort of a like interesting hiding spot, because it's like, oh, you wouldn't think to look in the trash for where he's hiding that. Yeah. But yeah, so they find those tapes, and then they take them all back to the hideout, and Ren is like, you know, like, I'm only helping you for the money. Like, here's my cassette player, you can borrow it.
What's the money? He keeps saying that. He's like, oh, I smell a big score on you. And it's like, how?
Yeah, I mean...
He's going to go fight a cartel. How do you smell money in that?
I don't know if
you go, no, thank you. That might be future business partners. You're on your own, kid.
In fact, on El Chapo,
I'm probably going to go tell them that this weird kid's trying to fucking kill their leader and get money there.
Yeah.
And so every time he's like, I smell money on you, it's not because Ryo's going to make him the money.
Yeah, and that's like, it's sort of interesting how, and like, obviously I don't know enough about, you know, Chinese antiques to know if like that would be something where you'd see it and be like, treasure.
The mirror?
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know enough about that, like, culturally to know if there is, like, some more important meaning, or something like that. But it is interesting, to your point, that he is like, yeah, there's money involved in this. Like, I smell it. And we'll sort of get, like, he...
It seems, I mean, so far it's just kind of a shallow explanation of why Ren's even helping him. Because Ren keeps thinking that he's gonna make money on Ryo, and it's like, but why? And they go, don't ask. Just watch.
They sort of like later on they like basically his I guess justification is like, well, the Yellowheads are involved and the Chiyu men are involved, so there has to be something.
I should be on their side.
No. Cuz he wants the money.
Money.
Yeah, that's
what
all
money?
Well, that's what's interesting is like we don't really to this day know what the mirrors do. So at the end of Shenmue 2, if you're okay with me sort of talking about it, we might have even talked about this in one of the previous episodes. Yondazu is like Yeah, if you bring the Phoenix and Dragon Mirror together, they lead the basically the path to the King Dynasty's like hidden treasure. And so essentially the idea, like, it's weird where we have this thing where they're like, oh yeah, if they get them, then the demon will be resurrected on Earth. But then it's also like, no, it's just treasure. And it's like, well, which one is it?
It's kind of gonna know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so it's like, I don't know. Maybe he just has a sixth sense for like, hey, money's involved. Like there could be treasure.
So it's the Triforce, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Only the pure of heart, Ben. Only they can make wishes. So yeah, he's listening in on all the cassette tapes. He listens to all of them. I don't know if they add this detail in the anime, but in the game he sort of has a montage where he listened through all of them, and then it's like, okay, this is the last one. If there's no clue here, then we're fucked, basically, because it'll be like a dead end. And so he listens through this last tape, and he actually comes across a phone call between Dou Niu and Yuan, and they're like, yes, Master Dou Niu, I caught this associate of Yondazu, and we have him kidnapped. And Yuan has this like parrot in the background who's like, kidnapped.
And then they had phone sex for 30 minutes. And
they
they
cut
sat
that.
and listened to that entire thing. It was gross.
It's like, there could be a hint.
Yeah.
But yeah, they listen to that, and they're like, okay, that's our next clue, is like that bird. And at first Rio's like,
That's ridiculous. The bird, of course.
it is a little goofy because like even in the game
What place has birds?
the bird shop.
Pigeon Park. Oh, the bird shop, I mean.
Well, in the game you go to like multiple bird shops before you
Okay.
find the right one, or you can, I guess you could immediately go
That
to the
makes
correct
it a little
one.
better, but
Yeah, like they sort of they go to this one and they're like, do you sell any like exotic birds that like mimic people? And they're like, no, you'd have to go to this specific one. So then you go to where that one used to be, and they're like, no, they moved, they're on the rooftop now. And so then you go to the rooftop from there. It's a lot of
what
busy
if
work,
Yuan
but
got the parrot or whatever from another part of town?
you don't.
They'd be fucked.
But yeah, so they go to the actually no, I'm jumping ahead. What am I talking about? Yeah, there we have Ren being like, you gotta listen, use your head, Rio. Like there was that bird, we gotta go there.
Hey, use your head, idiot. There's a bird.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
From there though, we have a sort of like brief scene at Manmo Temple, and we finally see a lot more of that basically that flashback of Shu Ying with her brother when they were kids, and we finally sort of see basically when her brother left. He's like, like, I need to track down who killed our parents, the Chiyu men, they'll know who did it.
Yeah, he's literally just Rio.
Yeah, basically. And this is sort of getting into like theory territory. There have sort of been things that Yu Suzuki has said that have made it so I don't think that's true, but people have speculated that maybe Lan Di is Shu Ying's brother. And that's sort of a thing that Yu Suzuki has like shot down. He's like, no, they're different members of the Chiyu men. But
Shu Ying is who? That brother?
so Shu Ying is the master, Master Tao, and her brother Zimming. They're theorizing that, or at least some people theorize that.
That's Lan Di?
Yeah, and it's like there are certain similarities. Like they, they both seek vengeance. They both join up with the Chiyu men. They both have like this sort of long hair, and so people are have theorized in the past that they're the same person.
Interesting.
But Yu Suzuki has sort of shot that down. I think in an interview someone asked him that, and he was like, no, they're like two separate people. And I even think in the there's like a comic you can unlock in Shenmue 2.
An Anakin Darth Vader, where yes, they're separate people, and he died the day he became Lan Di.
But when it's like the other thing that sort of discredits that is that his name is Sunming Long Sunming, because he's like Zhao Sunming's son, and so they don't have the same names. But then also beyond that, we do have like a comic book that you can unlock in Shenmue 2 that actually shows Shu Ying's brother like as an adult, and it's not Lan Di. So
interesting. Okay, well
yeah.
then, yeah, that does kind of fucking ruin that.
Yeah, and it's like that could have been something cool, but you're right, it would have just been like an Anakin Skywalker sort of thing. But although that would have, no, it wouldn't have predated like when we find out that Anakin was Vader. Because I was gonna say it predates the prequels when this whole like franchise kicked off, or it at least predated episode 2 and 3. But in any case, we sort of have her Shu Ying, like she does that whole flashback thing, and you know, she sort of, I guess, is reflecting on Rio and how he's sort of following in her brother's footsteps, and she's like, do I gotta do something, you know? And we'll get to that later. We'll see if that anything comes of that. But Rio and Ren, they sort of I like way jumped ahead. Yeah, so this is when they find out, they're listening to that tape, and they find out that Zhang, the associate of Yandazu from the previous episode, is being held by Yuan and Dou Niu. They go to the bird shop from there, and the owner of the bird shop tells them that, you know, they're essentially like, yeah, have you seen this guy? He dresses sort of flashy and has hoop earrings, and he's like, oh yeah, I know that guy. He comes here every day. He buys the, like, nicest bird food. And so they're like, okay,
why would you buy bird food every day? Just get a bigger
bag.
Yeah, just be like, could you give me like 30 portions of
it's
that?
like one, like later on we see Yuan's apartment, and it's fancy, so it's like he can afford it. He could buy two things of bird food a day.
He enjoys the trip. I don't know. Fuck it.
Or maybe it's like a thing where it has to be fresh. Like, I don't know what you feed birds, really.
No, we need to get to the bottom of this. Start looking up how long bird food No.
What do you feed a parrot?
I don't care. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, they sort of stalk Yuan after that. You know, they see him come up and buy the bird food and walk off. And in the game, that's a whole like sort of stealth segment.
Oh, good.
I mean, it's easier than like a lot of modern games. Like, this isn't sort of an Assassin's Creed situation where like the sort of like vision cone or whatever you want to call it is like super punishing, and you're like, you failed, desynchronized.
Right.
Like in this, as long as you're like a decent distance away, it won't be an issue. But yeah, there's like a lot more sort of following that goes on in that. But in this, we cut right to them just outside of like Yuan's basically apartment, and they sort of see him like act like a neat freak, I guess, a bit. Like, he uses like a handkerchief to open a doorway, and then he like sees a bunch of piles of garbage, and he's like, oh, some people.
Well, you know, that doesn't need to be a neat freak to be like, you're fucking gross.
I will say though, this will come up later in a later episode, not this one. Well, or it may, because like in the game it's sort of sadistic what happens, because they notice that, and it's like, wow, you like that's
that
a
reminds
little mean.
Me. There's a fucking Batman episode, the Clayface one, where in the animated series where there's this henchman who's like a big germaphobe. Yeah. And he goes to the hospital to kill Clayface or whatever, and Batman finds him and he chases him to a room of like deadly diseases that are all under observation, like in jars, and he puts a jar above his head and he's like, what are you doing? And the guy's like, nothing. And he punches the wall every time he lies, and the jar gets closer to falling on him, and he's like, no, please. And and then you find out it's just like a water jug. Oh. I wish it wasn't. I wish Batman was like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking
I poisoned you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they you know, they track Yuan back to his apartment, and you know, once they get there, this was the scene, I think, where they flip the coin in the game, and then Rio knocks on the door and knocks out Yuan, and so they sort of are looking through Yuan's apartments. I actually think maybe Ren was like, I'll stand guard while you look for Zhang. And now they like immediately are able to find him behind this little sort of divider thing that they have set up there. And he's like slapping him in the face. He's like, hey, wake up! Wake up! And Zhang's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I'm trying to sleep here. Yeah. But yeah, before they're able to escape, Ren comes in and he's like, shit, dude, like, Dou Niu's coming. Like, you hear his fucking lumbering footsteps
you see
again.
The camera shaking.
Yeah. And so Ren, he pulls a fast one, and he, you know, they have that parrot in the room, and he's like, hide in the closet. He says that to, like, the parrot, and that tricks Dou Niu. So when he sort of walks in, he sees Yuan on the floor, and he's like, what the fuck is going on here? And, you know, since Ren had told the parrot, you know, hide in the closet, it repeats that, and Dou Niu's like, "Oh, you pieces of shit! I know
He's
exactly
like,
where
"Aha."
you are." And he opens up the closet and he's like, "Ooh," because they're not in there. And then Rio and Ren kick him into the closet, and they knock over this sort of like dresser thing
Yeah.
to block it.
Which would not have stopped him.
Oh no, not at
Yeah.
all. Yeah, like it's pretty established that he's a beefy boy.
Big boy.
But yeah, they they're able to do that. They are able to escape with Zhang, and they're chilling on this rooftop. And Zhang is like, "Yeah, I figured out where Yandazu is. Like, I got in contact with him. He's in the Ghost Hall building, and you'll need to use these sort of weird keys to
Like
get to
animal
him."
keys.
Yeah, and in the game, it's the same sort of thing to a certain degree, I guess. Like, there are those animal keys, but how you find Yandazu is a lot different. I sort of talked to you a bit about this before, but essentially in the game, what happens is the Ghost Hall building is like in shambles. Like, most of the floors don't actually have like a floor. They just have like planks connecting like different halls and stuff like that, and you have to basically scale the building while going across these basically wooden planks. And it's like a pretty tense part of the game, especially if you're playing on Dreamcast, because you cannot save wherever you want. Whereas like in the re-release as well as the original Xbox version, you can save scum and just sort of breeze through that. Because in the game, if you fail any of the QuickTime events as you're going across those planks, you fall to the first floor. And it's like, okay,
Every time.
gotta go again. Yep, every time.
Oh my god.
And so it's like, and granted, the QTEs are the same. So like once you get to the same one, if you like wrote it down, for example, like what the prompts are, like you would know what to press. But it's just very punishing. And instead of doing that, we have this sort of like montage sequence where they are using these keys to go through all these like secret doorways and stuff like that.
Very obscure openings.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess the idea is that Zhang explained where all the like, because there's like hidden buttons and stuff like that that open like weird secret attics and all sorts of crazy stuff. But eventually they finally get to like the last door, and along the way they are not shutting any of the doors behind them. So that's an important detail to put a pin in for now. But yeah, they go through all those secret passages, and they finally come face to face with Yandazu. And I sort of want to ask you, what did you think Yandazu would look like?
I thought he would be an old man.
Okay, so then there. Yeah,
but I thought he'd kind of look like Master Chen. Because like I don't know why I thought I would be an old man. They all talk about him with like reverence, and they're like, "Ooh, this guy, and he wrote books and everything." So I'm just like,
yeah.
I wasn't expecting like a crazy anime spiky fro and a big pointy beard with glasses, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's how he looks in the game too. Like,
okay,
it's pretty much like to a T. How he looks.
It's cool to finally see him. But yeah, no, I guess I was just envisioning Master Chen kind of with the Chinese garb.
Yeah.
And the old, like, I'm just an old man.
Yeah. I'm just sort of surprised that we got to this point this fast. Like, it's only our first episode in Kowloon and we're already, like, here. But
yeah.
I do sort of, like, appreciate that we did that. Because then, essentially what happens is they reach Yandazu. And before they're able to talk, like, Rio's like, hey, I have this letter, and before that happens, of course, Yuan, Dou Niu, and the Yellowheads show up, and they're like, yes, you did a good job of leading us right to Yandazu.
No.
And, so from there, Ren is like, oh shit, I'ma just yeet out of the window.
Yep.
And,
no more money.
Yeah, Dou Niu is like, you're not gonna get away this time, kid.
And then knocks him out the window.
He decks Rio through the window.
Yeah.
He like falls on these I don't even know what
awnings.
Like awnings, and sort of like bounces down. So he's like beat up, but he's like, okay, that sort of makes sense if he bounced off awnings. But then you have Dou Niu jump down behind him. It's like 3 stories up from like the rooftop that they jump to. He jumps down and is completely unfazed. Yeah, he like dents the concrete.
They don't even slow him down. He just fucking smashes him.
Yeah, he's just like, "Argh." So he gets down there and he's like, time to fucking beat the shit out of this kid. And essentially from there we have Shu Ying show up, and she's like sort of there facing off with Dou Niu, and we get that sort of like classic anime thing where it like shows all their eyes. It's like and so we end on a cliffhanger there before the sort of fight. So then we get the credits after that.
No.
And
What
this is
happens?
like, this is the first one where I've been like, damn, they fucking like nailed the ending to that episode, like having it end on a cliffhanger. Like I love, or I guess I love hate when shows do that.
Yeah,
when I'm
I
like,
gotta
damn.
see the next one.
Yeah, it's like it's the same thing I was talking to you about Tokyo Vice. It's the same damn thing where it's like, come on, I need it now. So what did you think of the episode overall? Like this one was a lot quicker paced than the previous 4 that we've had.
Which is kind of jarring. Like it's good, I like getting things out of the way and the plot moving and all this stuff, but it makes it kind of weird that like there was that break in the middle of the anime of slow moving. What's this voodoo? What's that voodoo? How about that one? And then it's like half the episode is just kind of like filler almost with that. And to go back to the fucking like, all right, we gotta move, we gotta get through discs.
Yeah, they're like shit. We have 4 episodes left,
and shit's happening every second. And like half the stuff you wrote out in the synopsis, I missed because it's like blink, you miss it.
Yeah, and that's like
man,
that's why I'm sort of glad that I watch these episodes as much as I do.
Yeah,
to sort of get prepared for doing this. But it's like I do think that it's we're at the point where like the action is rising. I think it's only going to continue rising from here. And it is going to be pretty quick pace getting through the rest of Hong Kong, or not Hong Kong, Kowloon. So I'm excited for it. I sort of have an idea of what's going to happen. Obviously there's going to be changes just for timing. Like there's a lot of street fighting that happens in the game. I don't necessarily think we're going to get all of that in this, but it'll be interesting to see sort of how that all shakes out. Do you have any other sort of like, I guess, broad thoughts on that?
I appreciate that they showed just like a little bit of what's her name, Master Tao, like beforehand, that she didn't just show up at the end of the episode and it's like, what the fuck, why are you here?
Yeah,
I'm glad they gave her at least a minute to be like, I remember my brother, that was a lot like Rio, I should check on him. And it's like, cool, that's all I needed. I appreciate when shows put in that effort instead of just being like, suspend your disbelief even more. She showed up. Yeah.
Well, that's what's interesting is in the game, she doesn't have that sort of like, I guess, establishing scene where she like, because everything is sort of from Rio's perspective in the game. So we don't really see that like, I guess, contemplation where she's like, oh, I gotta find him and help him.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it has payoff. Like it wasn't an unnecessary scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. I think that was a good inclusion. I also really like that we saw more of Londi.
Yeah.
Like that was all the like sort of added stuff we've had with him throughout.
When you go like,
show.
Oh shit, he's in Kowloon because he's just talking to the people that were like, he's talking to Dou Niu and the
Yuan, like, I love,
right there.
I love that Dou Niu is like sort of like cowering and like bowing to him. It's like shit.
It's like the yellowheads were nothing compared to the Chiyu men.
Yeah, and so that like that sort of feeds into like the idea that like Londi is like a much bigger threat than like we don't really see, like we know he killed Rio's father, we know that he's a leader of the cartel, but that's about it. Like we don't we know
apparently
that
he's the leader of the cartel.
Yeah.
Like,
but he's like, okay, he's only one of 4 leaders of the Chiyu men, and even above them I think there's one like ultimate big bad. But we only know like I think 3 of the leaders right now. And then there's like the big one and then a 4th one that we don't know anything about yet.
Okay.
So it's like intrigue, stuff like that. But so why do you think this episode was called Comeback?
Comeback. Because they're coming back to the Shenmue formula of ramping it up and making everything last for 2 seconds before it moves on to the next scene.
I guess if I had to like do my like English class sort of thing, it's like, well, Rio and Ren are sort of like, I don't know, like the comeback kids. Like they get captured and then they're able to escape together, sort of thing. But
there's just so many other generic names you could have picked. Like if this episode was called Discovery, I'd be like, oh, they found Yonda Zoo.
Yeah.
Or if it was called like Revelation or whatever, I don't know, some goofy ass fucking one word.
Yeah.
Comeback. What?
Yeah.
I feel like the guy in charge of the episode names, he was running down the hallway with all the episodes in his hand. He's like, I got them in order. And he tripped on his spaghetti and he fell and they scattered everywhere. And he's like, oh no, I have the meeting in 1 minute. And he's like, just scooped them all back together.
They're all sort of interchangeable.
Yeah. He scooped them all back together in a big pile. And was like, yeah, that's the order.
Yeah.
So that's my theory on why this episode is called Comeback.
Like you could have done like Yin Yang as Rio and Ren. That could have been the name of the episode.
See? That would have been a better name.
Could have been when Xu Ying and her brother had those little yin yang things that the little.
That's what I'm saying. My theory stands up.
Yeah.
I'm fucking Isaac Newton in this bitch.
Are there any sort of final thoughts on the episode that you want to talk about before we sort of wrap things up?
Reputation. That was the word I was looking for.
God, I don't even remember what the context was for. Like, what was the...
rewind it, then. You'll hear
God
it.
Damn it. Alright, so that's going to do it for today's episode of the Boyos Discuss. If you enjoyed the podcast and are listening on YouTube, then we'd really appreciate it if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next week with our review of episode 11 of Shenmue the Animation. We're going towards the end here. We got 3 more episodes. So, anyways, guys, until next time.